Welcome back to the channel. Hello, I'm Marc Headley. With me today is Mitch Brisker for another episode of Marc and Mitch Make a Scientology Film. Thanks for joining me, Mitch.
No problem. Good to be here with you, Mark.
It's good to see you again. It's been a while. Our
Yeah,
schedules have been all jammed up and we finally figured it out.
we took a little break. I mean, I get endless messages from people wanting us to do more of these episodes.
That's
So
what I was just about to say. I was like, back by popular demand. We have
yeah,
been getting messages and comments like, hey, are you guys going to keep doing the films
yeah.
or not? I'm like, yeah, we'll get there.
But I got to tell you though, in all honesty, if people hated us doing this, I would still want to do it because it's so much fun.
It is fun. And
Yeah,
also, I was thinking about it the other day. There's no other place where there's any record of these things actually happening or the behind the
right,
scenes stuff. Or,
right.
I mean, there might even be people that are in the world of Scientology and Golden Era Productions that don't know these stories that took place because nobody ever
And
told them about them. And we
well,
were the only
plus,
ones who know about them.
yeah, if you were on the other side of the street, working at whatever, CMO Int or RTC or audio or any of those other, everything is, very isolated in Scientology. And even at the base, the different divisions were even isolated from one another. So
Completely.
a lot of this might have been going on without anybody knowing about it.
Yeah, and there's also sometimes I'll be telling a story about how we did this on a certain film or we did that on a certain film, and there'll be people that used to work in the cinematography division that are like,
Who
"Oh,
didn't
I never
know?
heard about that." I was like, "Yeah, you weren't on the shoot crew.
Yeah,
You were doing your thing, and we were up
yeah,
doing our thing."
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's a fact.
yeah. So the film that we're going to cover today, guys, is called EM5, and it's How to Set Up a Session and an E-meter. Is that the proper
And
title?
yeah, and the e-meter, how to
And
set up a
the
session
E-meter.
and the e-meter.
And
Yeah, and EM, by the way, stands for e-meter film. So this is specifically about e-meters. And this is Hubbard's instructional film about how you set the meter up and how you set the session up.
yeah, and this film was shot in the early 1990s, and it
Hmm.
was actually shot before I became a member of the shoot team.
Right.
And at that time, I was either working in manufacturing or I was working in quality control at Golden Era Productions. And for this film, um, I guess we could backtrack a little bit. If this is the first episode you guys have seen of this series at the Scientology International headquarters, anyone who worked at that property also had a duty besides just being a Sea Org member and doing whatever job you had to do. You were also had the hat of actor, and if you were called to be an extra or play a part in one of these Scientology films that was written by L. Ron Hubbard, you couldn't really deny doing it. If you were the right part or you were the right look or
Hmm.
whatever, you had to go do it. And so for this shoot, I got to play a part as an actor in the film of
Hmm.
this guy who just walks in randomly, accidentally when
Yeah.
this guy,
Well, you were one of L. Ron Hubbard's messengers. He had a bunch of messengers with him.
yeah,
And
and
you were one of the messengers.
I walk in while he's doing this thing, and the reason this was portrayed is because one of the things that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to set up the session is you're supposed to put a sign on the door saying, hey, we're in the middle of a session, an auditing session, so people don't just walk in unannounced, which is what I did. But but I was not only was I in the film, because I was part of quality control or manufacturing at that time. When the film was produced, I ended up watching this film, every single copy of this film that was going to play in Scientology organizations around the world was reproduced on 16 millimeter film, and it had magstripe audio. And it was my job to check every single copy of these films before they went out. So I've seen this film at least 400 times because even though I watched everything, not every one of them passed. And so we have
Right.
to send multiple. And anyway, so I know this film inside and out.
Yeah.
And then after it was shot in the 90s, it was then reshot later on. And I
Right.
don't know what year you guys shot it at because it was after.
Around 2005, I think, maybe a little later.
Okay, so it was after I had escaped from the base in the
Yeah, yeah,
sea.
yeah. A couple of years after you had you made your final push to freedom.
Yeah. So I just want to show you guys real quick some of the locations, and then we're going to get into sort of the more
Yeah,
detailed
this film, I
story.
mean, it sounds simple in that it's just meant to instruct you how to set up a position in the email, but Hubbard having this weird, insane kind of imagination and having, made, his living as a fiction writer, where he just churned out stories, not very good ones, in my opinion. He decided to concoct this whole story around these certain characters and circumstances, and then within that story, you would see how a emitter was set up and so forth. And this is very creative stuff, except it was a very racist approach he took to the story. It actually has a connection, which we'll get to, with the Nazi propagandist Leni Riefenstahl, who he reached out for location research. So there's a lot of crazy little things going on with this film.
Yeah, I mean the film starts out where a telex is being sent to L. Ron Hubbard,
Yeah, a telex,
and a
Mark,
telex,
a telex. Yeah,
and when we shot this film, and this
in
film,
modern times, a telex.
Scientology was still sending and receiving telexes, and they
Yeah.
may even be sending and receiving them till to this
Well,
day.
if they're not, they're referring to whatever they're sending and receiving as telexes.
Yeah, and they have a
Like
whole
they
number.
they
It's
get
just,
an email and they call it a telex.
yeah, it's wild, guys, because L. Ron Hubbard never mentioned an email in
Yeah,
his
so it has to be a
source
telex.
writings. So because he called it a telex, they still have to
Right.
call it a telex. Anyway, it starts out with him receiving a telex and his messengers informing him that there's some auditor in the middle of Africa at a Scientology facility that has been auditing the son of the king,
Right.
and the son of the king is unhappy and is about to cause a big problem, and Scientology is essentially going to be kicked out of the country because of this bad PR situation that's brewing. And so then Hubbard is being asked, hey sir, you've got to come and you've got to handle this. And then he actually flies in, and this is the best thing of all. If you're in Scientology, this is the most absurd concept ever, that L. Ron Hubbard would fly from wherever he is to train the single auditor on how to set up a session.
Mhm.
Is
Because
the
that's
most
how much he cared.
yeah, that
He
is
cared that
ridiculous.
much.
Yeah, it's a very ridiculous premise.
Yeah,
The
it's
part of
well,
him the part of him coming there, the part of them getting kicked out of Africa, that's 100% accurate.
I think I'm not sure, but I think it was based on Algeria or Morocco, where they did try to audit the king and they were kicked out of the country. And I think that is the story that it was based on.
Yeah, and I want to say that Janice Grady, I think Gillum Grady has spoken about this.
But not about the connection with EM5, about the
No,
being
but she's,
kicked out of
yeah,
Morocco. I think it was Morocco that they were kicked out of.
very possibly. I know that they've been the rocks were thrown at the ships and the Sea Org members in
Yeah,
different ports. So I
yeah, but
might mix up which one is which.
so I think kind of Hubbard takes it on himself to travel to Africa, but he creates himself as like a white savior. Like, I'm the white savior that's going to go to Africa and like save everything. And it's pretty crazy the way if you really look at the film, like from a political, cultural standpoint, you have this very privileged white guy who is going to rescue a problem that really was created by himself. He's the one that really created the problem, and now he's going to go solve the problem. And this is it ties in with the indoctrination in
Totally.
Scientology, because they do this to people. They convince people that they're damaged, and then it accepts the people, and just by the fact that they're upset about it is proof that they need help. So then they start, forking over money to get help. As part of this crazy brainwashing con called Scientology.
Yeah, there's another thing that I'll put a link in the description, but basically there's this guy named Chris Owen who
Mhm.
may be the most prolific historian, Scientology historian, who's documenting and digging up L. Ron Hubbard's war records and all these different things. And I'll link to it, but there's a whole article about L. Ron Hubbard and his time in Rhodesia and how
Mhm.
he was there to support the apartheid government, and how
Right.
he thought he was Hubbard. Evidently, Hubbard was convinced that he was a reincarnation. He was
Cecil Rhodes, yeah,
Cecil Rhodes
who was
reincarnated,
gay, by the way, who happened to be a gay man.
a gay white
Yeah,
supremacist, no
yeah, a
less.
gay white supremacist. So
Anyway, but Hubbard insisted that he was the reincarnation of this guy, and he actually traveled to Africa to find the gold and diamonds that Cecil Rhodes had hidden there somewhere. And it's a fascinating article. I'll put a link to it in the description, but regardless,
I just have to interject. They still deported him.
Oh yeah, no, he actually did get kicked out of South Africa, and it's just a weird. So if you know all of that, and now we're going to tell you about the film, you go like, oh, he literally wrote this film with all this background information to as the story to how you set up an e-meter in a room and all the different things. It's literally a checklist that he wrote.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing. There's a picture book that shows you.
You got to have a dictionary. You got to have the meter. You got to have a spare meter. You got to check the meters on charge. It's like, but the fact that he had to make this political sort of racist statement as the backdrop for how you set up.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and we helped him do it because at the time we were of that mind that we thought we were helping the world,
and we thought everyone was going to watch this film and love it. And so here, let me show. I'll put up.
Well, they do love it if you're in the brainwashed cult. If they love it,
totally. So this is the United States, and you can see on the western end there's California, and there's a town called San Jacinto, and San Jacinto lays right below the Int base. You can see it up there. I'll move it over here a little bit. Golden Era Productions is right there. The first time that we shot it at this place that was called the Int Ranch, and this is where all of the kids of the Sea Org members that worked at the international headquarters, this is where they went to school. This complex right here, it was called the Int Ranch. Now it's owned by the Saboba Indians, and it's no longer belongs to Scientology. But this whole village was set up in this area right here. And it was pretty secluded, and I don't think you could really. I mean, you guys had to watch your angles if you didn't want to see any of the little town, the little village where the ranch was. But it was sort of in this section here that had little hills all around it. So
it was pretty. It was a decent place to shoot. I mean, it was, except for the rattlesnakes and the heat and all the cold and all that other stuff. But yeah.
And also the weather. So you could build. They built a whole village out there, and I want to say, at this property, I'll zoom in a little bit here, but there was all these bungalows, and they've torn a lot of it down by now. But this also used to be the location for what was called in this big empty space right here. This was where the Rehabilitation Project Force was for the international headquarters. So if you were a Sea Org member and you got in trouble, you were sent out to this remote location, and that's where you lived. You ate, slept, and did all your rehabilitation and hard labor at this property. And I want to say the first time that we shot EM5, that the Rehabilitation Project Force is the ones who built the majority of the village.
I think so.
But with the help of the sets crew, but they were the labor force to build all of the sets, and that wasn't, and that was the case for many, many of the years that I was there. The Rehabilitation Project Force was the main sets and props production facility for the shoot crew for most of the 90s and into the 2000s. Even when it was eventually, there was a lot of bad press around there being this labor camp near the Scientology facility. And even when it was disbanded and gotten rid of, almost all those people became sets and props people. The ones that were the backdrop artists and the props people, they became part of sets and props. And then we'll go to the Golden Era Productions.
But I just want to add to that. Interestingly enough, even though the RPF and the sets people, like, it was built by adults, once we were finished with the film, it was just left. It was abandoned. The backlot was abandoned, and it sat there forever. And then eventually it became like a fire hazard. So they had the kids take it apart.
I'm pretty sure the kids actually used to go out. I don't know if I'm remembering my stories right, but I think from some of the ranch kids that I've spoken to, there was a fair bit of nonsense that would happen out there at the little village,
Right.
because it was sort of, you could kind of go out there and nobody'd know you were out there because you'd be in one of
Right.
these little huts or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
but you're right. I think eventually
No, I
the
remember because
children had to disassemble the village.
yeah, they had them tear it all down, and the thing is, it was infested with rattlesnake
Oh,
nests. But I don't think the kids. I mean, back then, if you killed a rattlesnake and you turned it into security, you got a $15 reward. Remember? So
yeah, there was something like that. I think there was a
yeah,
bounty.
which is not a good thing because you don't want to promote people going and killing rattlesnakes or anything else. But I think the kids were out there with shovels, like collecting, bank, killing rattlesnakes. So anyway, it's just they were not treated well. It was a horrible place.
Yeah, there was
Anyway,
nothing good about that facility, and
yeah,
especially
I
on
mean,
the ranch. The RPF was there, the kids were there.
yeah, it was horrible.
There's a story one time there was a fire. There was a fire at the Ant base where the mountain was set on fire by one of the Scientology Sea Org member security guards, and the people that came to put out the fire were prisoners, and they were going to sleep up on the hill above the Ant base during the night after they'd done all the firefighting. And I think David Miscavige or some Scientology executives heard about this, and they were like, "You've got to sort this out. This can't be." And so the port captain, a guy by the name of Ken Hoden, he made arrangements for all of the prisoners to sleep at the ranch with the kids instead of
Oh
above.
no,
That was
no.
that was his solution. And then when they found out about that, it was like, what?
Oh
Anyway,
my
so yeah,
God.
not a lot of good happening on that. Now
No.
this is the Ant base, and there's a highway that runs between it. On the right side of the highway, that is pretty much Religious Technology Center and International Management is on the what was called the north side of the highway.
Yeah, and the notorious hole was on the north
And the
side,
hole, yeah, here I'll zoom in on the hole so you can see it's
and
right.
audio. Well, it's gone now, but it might be in this
Well, yeah,
picture.
that double wide trailer right in the middle of the screen, that's where the hole
Yeah, there
was.
you
And then
go. There you
these
go.
buildings were international management and the audio recording studios and archives, audio storage, and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And then up here is where the city council was, that big building there with the lake in front of it. And then right over here is where you guys reshot it later in these in the mid 2000s.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Yeah, we reshot it there. I came up with this crazy plan because basically it's kind of hard to explain, but I wanted the work at Gold to be as it sounds weird, but I want it to be as convenient as possible for me. Okay, so
it doesn't
I know
sound
that
weird.
sounds
That
no, but
checks out from when I was there. That totally checks out. Like
yeah,
literally, we're working all night and all day. And Mitch is like, I don't want to drive an extra 30 minutes to go do this at another location. We should just shoot it here. And you're just
yeah,
like,
I was always
we're
figuring
gonna
out
be up all
ways.
night and day, and you're worried about traveling an extra 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that bad, Mark. You're kind of exaggerating. But I mean, usually I would come up with these plans and they would kind of benefit everybody. So I said, look, why don't we just build the backlot right outside the castle? It's right next to sets production. And what we can do is we can build a whole village. The only problem is that Gold doesn't know how to do backdrops because in a situation like that, my plan was we're going to shoot the exteriors on this backlot and then we'll replicate the sets in the studio and we'll shoot all the interiors inside, which means you have to have really realistic backdrops outside all the doors and windows. You have to shoot the actual environment that you're shooting in and then create backdrops. They didn't know how to do that. So, and then I said the rest of it, the road and the castle, we'll remove it with CGI. We'll just take it out. And so this meant that if it rained one day, we could go in the castle and shoot. It meant that we could finish the film much faster. I mean, it was more expensive to do it that way,
Yeah.
but it was
Just
much
so,
quicker.
yeah, the
But they didn't
cast.
know how to, yeah, but they didn't know how to do backdrops. So the next thing I'm complaining about to Miscavige, these guys, they just don't know how to do backdrops, blah, blah, blah. So the next thing I know, I'm like invited to spend 4 days on the set of War of the Worlds to see how Spielberg's people do these backdrops, right? Which I knew how they did it. I just needed to bring it back to Gold. I just need to send a text to my kid to handle the dog because he said he would handle the dog and he's not doing it. Anyway, so I went back there. This is one of the backdrops from War of the Worlds. This is like the the set that was used as the interior for the house, the home that Tom Cruise lived in. These were the literal views outside that actual place.
Wow.
It was an actual place, and then they shot these huge. They're called Duratrans, and then they hung these around the set. I have a ton of pictures of them.
Durable transparencies. So it's
Yeah,
like a
durable.
picture. It's like a picture that you could backlight, and
Yeah,
then
you
that
could put a light behind it, and it's just a standard way that you do believable backdrops in Hollywood. And so then Gold got into full gear on figuring out how to do this and buying the printer and all that stuff. And I can show you, we have we have a picture of the actual village, the external one.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a whole bunch of pictures.
Yeah,
I
well,
have like 20.
we could put them up and go through them, and then we could talk about
Perfect.
the film itself. Okay, so that's an actual background. You're inside the studio, and you're on a set, and what you're looking at is a gigantic Duratrans of the actual location that's outside the studio. So,
Oh, so you guys could build you build sets. This makes so much more sense. We always had
yeah,
sound problems doing it the other way. We'd
yeah,
have to wait for a chopper, or we'd have to wait for a plane, or we'd have to wait for it was always a nightmare when we shot it on location at the
yeah,
ranch.
exactly. So this
It
is
was
actually
hot.
this is how you really do this, and I finally got them to like spend the time and the money to do it. It
Oh
wasn't
my
easy. It
goodness.
only took 15 years, but
Yeah.
but
You
you
had to
can
do all the films twice to do them the way you want.
yeah, exactly, to actually get them done right. So like for instance, this is a scene inside the castle, and outside what you're seeing outside the window is a photograph, a giant photograph of the environment that's outside the castle where the exterior set was.
And
And then
dressed up and photoshopped and made all nice, and then
yeah,
painted.
yeah, but it matches perfectly. So
Wow, and that's the messenger, that's the main character in the film.
yeah, he's yeah. The guy that you and I did it with was
Yeah.
that guy was a 10.
Yeah,
That
he
guy
was
was
amazing. So the guy was, and this is a funny thing about, I wanna say David Miscavige's perception of actual Sea Org members and actual messengers
yeah,
is this guy, the guy who played this part in the 1990s film, he was the most amazing messenger that had ever been shown on film inside
yeah.
Scientology, and he wasn't a Sea Org member, he wasn't even a
No,
Scientologist. He just
no.
was playing the part that L. Ron Hubbard had written, and
Yeah, he
David
was a
Miscavige was,
yeah,
like, touting this guy as he's a better messenger than any messenger alive
yeah. It was
that's
real, and the
ever
guy
lived.
he was basically an actor and a stand-up comic, and he was. I mean, the guy kept us in stitches,
Oh, he was,
pretty
like,
much.
full-time,
Very
like,
funny.
on, just always just joking and
Yeah,
making
I mean, it's kind of
fun.
a comically written part. I mean, the guy's a wise ass.
Yeah,
Hubbard envisioned all of his uh, the messengers as being kind of very having sort of a superiority complex and being really wise asses and kind of enjoying ridiculing people. This
totally.
guy does it, but it seems funny because it's being written as comedy.
Yeah,
So
get these
anyway,
papers picked up.
we could kind of spin through the rest of these and then we'll talk
Perfect.
about yeah. So there's another one that's inside. That's actually you're inside the studio. It's not an exterior shot.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a sign leading it. We built this entire village, and it's supposed to be a fictional African country called Mahali Arafiki. And so this is the sign because we know every African village must have a welcome sign.
Yeah, and that's
Essentially.
another weird thing that they don't ever really explain is because a lot of L. Ron Hubbard also recorded the voiceover for this film.
Mm. No, not just the voiceover. Not just the voiceover. He's featured in the film.
I understand,
Uh,
but I'm saying
yeah,
he recorded the voiceover f
right.
all
He
the
did.
voiceovers for this film when he was still alive, even though we're shooting it in the night it never got produced until the '90s. He passed away in '86, so he had already pre-recorded the voiceovers to
Right.
do for this, and then we would do these over-the-shoulder shots of a body
Right.
double or some guy's arm that looked like him. When we originally did the film, did we use Marcus for
No,
this
no,
one?
no, no. We had a guy, I can't think of his name. I think he was the same guy who did the Beingness
The
film.
B TR-16?
Yeah, he was that kind
Okay.
of big redheaded guy.
Yeah.
But Hubbard also, he had a camera when he recorded the voiceover, but he also recorded all of his hand motions.
Yeah,
So,
so the guy could mimic
yeah,
what he did with his arms and hands, and
yeah,
but
yeah,
but what I wanna say, say, because 'cause I've seen the film a million times,
right, right,
they say in the very opening sequence, they say, "They want you to go to Africa." And then they're like, "Okay, we're going." And then they go to Mahali Arafiki, and you're like,
right.
"I thought they were going to Africa. Where's Arafiki? I've never even heard of that." And
Yeah,
that's always a part that I always thought, like, why couldn't they just do one or the other? Like, it could have said in the VO, they want you to go to Arafiki and then go to Arafiki. But anyway, whatever. Small.
yeah. Well,
That's my
it's
nitpick of watching the film
well, yeah,
500 times and saying this is weird.
yeah. It's a fictional country that sounds kind of really corny, like a kid would make it up. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what do we have? Okay, so now you can see the extent of this this African village. Interestingly enough, the landscape in Southern California and this part of Southern California is very similar to the landscape in this one part of Africa where this would it's in kind of northeast Africa where this is supposed to be. So the the vegetation and so forth is relatively similar.
I'm not sure why there's that one, and then there's this one. I'm not sure
Oh
what
yeah, no, I think I
sort
just
of thing
graded
yet.
one and I just act okay, so here's another thing. When you're casting a film in LA and you're trying to do an African village, you really need to find a bunch of people that are from the same part of Africa. Because if you just start casting randomly, black actors, they're going to look like they're from all over the place, right?
Yeah.
They need to look like they're from the same tribe. So fortunately, I found there's a community of Nigerians in North Hollywood
Okay.
who are actors and musicians and dancers. And so I hired, and they were happy to be in the film. The only problem is, as I was going through the script, there's a scene that Hubbard wrote where there's a
Oh, yeah.
woman and two small children, and they're looking in a window with curiosity about what's happening, and they're eating bananas. And he refers to them in the script as pickaninnies, which
Yeah.
is a really not, it's a very
Not a
racist term.
not a current approved, terminology.
Yeah, no, no, it's anyway,
There's a
so
lot of things like that in these films, by the way. That's not an isolated thing where there's
yeah, so yeah, there's a
outdated
lot,
references and
yeah, yeah, racist, also misogynistic, sort of very
super.
not,
We've talked
yeah,
about this
so
in some of the other videos, but I
yeah,
mean, even we talked about it. In the audio division of Golden Air Productions, there's a whole team of people that are editing out racial slurs and coughs, and there is another uh, just editing out anything inappropriate
right,
that's currently inappropriate. And L. Ron Hubbard did so many of those that there's an actual thing that's written on. You got to take these things out.
right. Well,
Um,
this, so just let me say that.
yeah,
So I had to what we call the sides, the pages of the script needed to be delivered to these actors, and I couldn't, in good conscience. That's I called my there's myself in
oh,
the
sorry. I thought there was
no,
more
that's
pictures of
okay.
these guys, but there's
Yeah,
some
that's
cameos.
yeah. I refer to that as Indiana Jew, by the way. So I know it's terrible. Um, I can say that I'm Jewish, but
Yeah,
anyway, so
I'm not
no, but
touching
so
any of
yeah,
that.
don't. So I had to give these script pages to these actors, and I couldn't ask permission to change Hubbard's words because that's just
Yeah.
like a no-no. So I just went ahead and changed it and got them, I took the bad racist stuff out of the script and gave it to the actors. I mean, nobody ever said boo. They were just like,
I
yeah, we're
was
not.
gonna say that's like there's no other easy way out of that situation to just do it and
Yeah,
what is it? Ask for forgiveness, not permission, because
nobody ever said a word. They were,
there's no way that you could change it with authority with being approved that you would do
yeah,
it.
he's never going to get approved to
But if you
change the guy.
changed it and then
Yeah.
somebody found out why, they'd be like,
No,
he really had to do that. There's no way around that.
yeah, but these people they were lovely people. They were good to work with. I have some other pictures. Now, look, we even had zebras. The reason I
I
have
was
this
gonna
here.
say that is like some serious background
Yeah,
talent.
no, we had, and I posted this picture on Facebook.
Yeah,
It just said, "Oh," it didn't say anything about what it was.
and people thought you
Nothing. I
went
just
there.
said, "Oh," yeah, and I got in so much trouble for
You went on
revealing plant.
safari?
Yeah, I got in so much trouble with ethics at Gold because I'm like, "You're revealing our plans to our enemies," and I'm like, "No, I'm not."
No,
It's
because
oh
you
yeah,
posted a picture, a 3 shot with zebras?
Yeah, because you have people in the Sea Org, well, you have people at Scientology organizations whose job it is to uncover problems and solve them. And if they can't find problems to solve, then they're in trouble.
That's
So
true. They're like
yeah.
literally paid to witch hunt. That's their job.
Yeah, that's the reason that Scientology Media Productions is such a disaster. Is you had the entire the statistic of the ethics department is like what do they call it?
Situations
Flaps.
found and handled, flaps and
Yeah,
handled.
situations
It's
found and
found and
handled,
handled.
and if they can't find a situation to handle, they got no statistic.
That's
So
true. I never thought of it that way. It's
the,
sort of like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, there's no situation, sir. You better make some. You better
yeah,
find
you
some.
better. Yeah, that can't be true.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no nonsense going on.
Yeah. So, anyways, weird stuff. So, anyway, these were lovely people that they really liked the village. They recognized, they actually validated it as being very authentic from an African village, and so yeah, they were great. I tried to hire them to do the score for the film, but the musicians wouldn't let me because some of them were very talented musicians.
Okay, now before we show this next
Yeah,
video, there's actually two little clips. I do want to, now that you've brought this up, I do want to say
yeah,
something about this. When this film was originally shot in the 1990s,
yeah,
the musicians have a thing that's called Hubbard wrote a bunch of policies, and he called it the art series.
right,
And there's art series 1 and 2 and 3 and so on. Well, there's a policy or this bulletin that he wrote. It's called art series 8.
right.
And what he basically wrote is, if you're trying to create something and you don't have any sort of idea, or you don't have any sort of what do you call it, like a proper muse or inspiration, that
Yeah,
you should
right,
go watch other things that other people have
right.
done, and that'll give you an idea. And so the musicians, they could not come up with an African score for this film that Miscavige was in any shape or way or form happy with. And one of their art series 8 was an album that was produced by Cirque du Soleil at the time.
Yeah, I gave them that album, Mark.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that album is the soundtrack to that
yeah,
film.
totally. It's such a rip off.
They
There,
didn't
it's
they didn't even change. They used the same songs in
yeah,
the same order in the soundtrack.
yeah. There was a wonderful piece of African sounding music in a Cirque du Soleil show from, I don't know, probably early '90s. I can't
I have never been able to find it.
like this, and they just ripped it off. So,
Yeah,
oh,
I
we
mean,
have a little. There you go. We had a little glitch.
oh, I didn't see it. But regardless, when I heard, like I told you before, I've listened to this thing
Yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of times,
yeah,
and then somebody told me, oh, supposedly the musicians might get in trouble because they didn't really tell anybody how
right,
much they ripped it off. And I think Miscavige found out, but we'd actually released a music cassette of EM5.
right, right.
And I think somebody got a hold of it, and they were like, hey, you guys know you're totally 100% ripping off Cirque du Soleil. And then if you
Yeah,
play them, and then I listened to the actual album, and then that's when I realized, oh, they didn't even change the order of the songs. Like that, it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
wild if you
yeah. It's
listen to the
weird.
original. But so if anybody has a copy of the EM5 music single that was released in the 1990s,
Yeah.
give that a listen. And I've never been able to find that Cirque du Soleil album that they ripped off.
I'll remember what it is.
Okay.
I'll remember the name. It was from the
If we
early
if we
'90s.
figure it out, I'll put it up on the community page, or we'll add it to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or something like that. But it's pretty. But so if we do find it and you listen to it, you'll at least be able to listen to the soundtrack to the movie, because they
Yeah,
just ripped it off. Okay, when it
yeah.
was redone, did they use that same soundtrack
Pretty
again?
much. They pretty much used it.
No.
Yeah, and I wanted these guys, these Nigerian actors and musicians, they were like the level of African musicians that had played with, like, Paul Simon. Like, they were
Yeah.
on that level. It's amazing musicians.
Well, should we
And
play
one
the
of them,
video?
what's
Because they
that?
sing in this video.
Yeah, they're just goofing around.
Well, I
But
know, but I could
yeah,
hear
you
in the
can hear
background,
yeah.
I could hear Seth, the sound guy, giving them instructions on
Oh
how
yeah,
each
because
thing
we
takes
did record them singing on the set.
like
That's
this
true. We
wild
did.
track or some kind of back
Yeah,
you wanna
yeah,
use.
yeah.
Can I play it?
Please.
Hold on, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're out of here, right?
Yeah, I think I shot this on my phone when no one was looking.
Yeah, so that I could hear Seth in the background giving
Yeah.
audio direction.
Oh, and they're singing and dancing because the auditor is now an okay guy. Like he's
Yeah, they're not going to throw them out of the country.
yeah, they're not going to throw him out of the country, so they're
The
all
king
celebrating.
is not going to come down on them
Yeah,
and
yeah,
chuck them out, so they can sing
yeah,
and they can dance.
yeah. Anyway, we went all out to try to make this film as great as we possibly could.
Yeah. Wow. And so in the original, the main character, there's the messenger and then there's the
Right,
auditor. The
right,
auditor was played by Larry Anderson, who was
right,
also in the Orientation film that was shot by
right.
Scientology. And he plays sort of the bumbling auditor who doesn't and anybody who knows Larry, he was a comedic actor
Yeah,
and
and a magician, and
a
so his
magician
sleight
and
of hand artist.
yes, so he was amazing at the physical comedy that was written for the part because he could sort of make bumbling, entertaining, and it was fun.
Yeah,
It was
he
funny to
was
watch.
really good at it.
And the other thing about this film is it was one of the longest of the Scientology
Yeah,
films
it's about
that
an
were
hour
available.
long.
Yeah, so a lot of these films that you're watching, they could be 10 minutes or 15 minutes or very short. And this was sort of a film that if you were a student on a course and any course in Scientology that involves an e-meter that you need to be trained on how to use, you get to watch this film. So over the years, there was a lot of students that would say, "Oh yeah, whenever I was on course, I would try to go and watch that film because it's almost it's like almost an hour long, and it's not that bad of a watch." So people would they knew these lines in the movie, and there's
Yeah,
certain things that comedic things that would be said. So the wrong room, that was a very
right,
famous. So
right.
even me,
They became catchphrases.
yeah, if ever I walked into an office and it was not where the meeting was, I would always be like, "Oh, wrong room," because that
Yeah.
was my thing. But there was also the messenger. I think Larry leaves the window open and all these papers blow all over the
Right.
office, and there's just papers and stuff all over the floor. And then when the messenger comes in, he's berating him and he's like, "And get these papers picked up or pick these
Yeah.
papers up," or something like that. And so that was if you walked into somebody's office and there was stuff on the floor, I'd be like, "Pick these papers up." But then
Well, do you
the actor's
yeah?
name was it Al Clegg was who was
Yeah, the African son of the king.
the son of the king.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he'd played in the NFL for a couple years, I think for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he had a really bad injury and his NFL career was over, so he became an actor. Great guy.
Yeah, and he was
Definitely not from Africa.
and also not a
Definitely.
Scientologist.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were besides Larry was a Scientologist, and besides any extras or people like that we had in the film, the main cast and actors were not
Right,
Scientologists.
right.
They were just actors from Los Angeles that were auditioned and then cast for the film. And we were saying earlier about this guy that played the messenger. He was a very good messenger in terms of
Mhm,
what David Miscavige thought a
mhm.
messenger should look like and sound like, and perform his duties. But then when we did the TR-16 film and we got that guy Shane Johnson,
Johnson, yeah.
Shane, he was also another one of these people who played the part of a messenger, like even people who knew what a messenger should be like. That
Well, yeah,
guy's
people would have who were training to be messengers would have to watch these films, were ordered to watch them because this is how a messenger is supposed to act. So,
and this
and
kid
these
was
guys were like these were pot smoking actors. I mean, these were just like regular fun people
yeah,
who,
just
who just needed a gig.
and would just literally showed up to play a part and
Yeah.
phoned it in maybe. I
No,
don't
well,
think
I don't
they
know.
worked
I don't
that
know about
hard,
that. I mean, I beat them up pretty hard to
but regardless, they
yeah.
were amazing, being messengers, And the
Yeah,
fact that David Miscavige would tell people, watch this film and watch a guy who's not a Scientologist and not a messenger, because he knows how to
yeah,
be a messenger better than you. That
yeah,
is a
and
Tuesday at the international
oh
headquarters. And
yeah,
this can
totally.
happen
Yeah,
all the time.
no, totally. Like, look, I kind of, yeah, he would, his attitude was like, well, like with me, I had to hire this MFer because you guys can't do your jobs. Like it was
Yeah.
always a way of holding something up to ridicule the staff, because David Miscavige hates Sea Org members. He hates staff. He hates everybody except, I don't know, maybe 4 people and some big donors. I mean, literally is
Yeah.
like
His
despises people.
movie star buddy.
Yeah, and his girlfriend and the big donors. And other than that, you're shit. You're nothing. Yeah, no, it's very true.
It's
But Mark,
very wild. It's
you
very wild when you're
yeah,
there and you're like, we're shooting a film with a guy who he's never read anything about Scientology. He may have
doesn't
gone
it? Yeah,
into Celebrity Center to do his audition or whatever at the Scientology facility at Franklin and Bronson in Hollywood, California. But besides that, he doesn't really have any connection to Scientology. And then to hear David Miscavige, and David Miscavige never met this guy. He never spoke
no,
with him. He had no
no.
connection with him. And then he would just be like, oh yeah, this guy's a better messenger than any messenger that's ever been. And you're just like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Well, we did the same thing with Katie Mitchell when she was trained to portray the part of an auditor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, she became the model. She was portraying what it looks like to audit somebody, and then she became the model. Like every auditor in the world had to like model themselves after the way she did it. So it was really
Same thing
crazy.
with Jack Armstrong. When we
Yeah,
did the
Jack
session
Arms.
film,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
became the best auditor in the world, like the
yeah,
most perfect auditor in the world.
yeah. Because
He wasn't an auditor.
yeah,
He
it's
didn't do
called
the
it.
golden
It's
age of tech and all. He was an actor
yeah,
pretending to be auditing.
yeah, and then being edited together for all the best parts. So I
Yeah.
just have to say, do you remember the messenger's final line in the film? Do you remember the last line in the film?
I don't.
Clowns, clowns,
Oh, yes.
clowns, will they ever learn?
Yes.
Doing what Ron says always comes out right.
Yeah.
Like that is the punchline of the entire film. That's what an egomaniac this person was. He made this entire film so that at the end of the film, he could narcissistically give himself a huge round of applause.
It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier when we were kind of when I was reading this Chris Owens Rhodesia thing, and I
Mhm.
was like, oh, that's right. In the film, Hubbard is the hero who saved the day. Like they
Oh
were
yeah,
Scientology was going to get kicked out of Africa because this
yeah,
auditor messed up. Hubbard flies in on his chopper. And within a couple of days, he turns the thing around. The
yeah,
king's son is amazingly happy, and the
yeah.
whole thing. And then it's like we're getting out of here. We're ready to leave, and it's us. And that's you're right. At the end, the it's like a big pullout shot, and the
Oh
messenger's like,
yeah, like all of those natives are dancing, like you saw. They're
yeah,
dancing, and the camera slowly pulls back, and then it moves over to the messenger, and he's leaning there, being really cocky, and he says, "Clowns, when will they ever learn?" Doing
yeah,
what Ron says always comes out right. And,
yeah.
and and I thought that was so cool when I did it. I mean, I look at it now, I'm like so embarrassed, but I thought, oh yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, and the other thing is that is actually sort of how some of these other films that it's kind of they go along that same vein.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ron worship in these
Yeah,
films.
in TR-16, it's the same way. He's coaching these guys. No, you got to do this, and no, you got to do
Right,
this. Have
right,
them do
right,
this,
right.
and then in the end, it's like, sir, you're amazing. We were able to snap this whole thing together with your help, and
Yeah, yeah.
you're like, this is so
It's so
stupid.
cringy. It's so cringy when you think back on it. It's
Yeah.
so cringy. It's like, oh my god, but it's just like you're oblivious to it.
Yeah, and
Um,
these films are very popular among students that are
oh yeah,
training to do Scientology because they're
yeah,
really the only if you're training to be, an executive or if you're training to do some kind of administrative post, there's nothing like this for
no,
posts really. They might have to watch one, or like maybe Orientation was a film that they an executive or
I think also they might watch the testing film, also
yeah,
the
maybe there's like
communication.
maybe a couple. But if
The
you're
ones
training,
that are about staffs and organizations, there are a
yeah,
few, so they'd watch those.
but if you're training to be a counselor or someone who audits, does the Scientology counseling on another person, the higher you get up, you have to watch more and more of these
Yeah,
films. And
yeah,
you might watch one of these films in 10 years of Scientology courses and stuff. You might watch some of these films hundreds and hundreds of times
yeah,
each, because you're supposed to
yeah.
watch, you're encouraged to watch them over and over and over again. What does he say? Hubbard says, number of
Number
times
of times
over equals
over
certainty
equals
and understanding.
certainty. Yeah, we're never gonna forget that,
I
huh?
know, where there's some every once in a while, I can't remember what it was now, but I I was talking to my wife Claire, and I was like, "What's that thing when you do the thing?" And and she was like, "I can't believe you don't remember." I was like, "That's a good thing, I think."
Yeah,
'Cause
that
I
really
don't
is a good
like,
thing,
I'm
yeah.
overwriting some of my old
Yeah,
memories.
your brain's letting go. It's
Yeah, the
really good.
synapses is like, "We're never gonna use this.
Yeah,
Just
no,
just erase."
no, yeah.
But,
Unneeded.
yeah, but there are things like that, number of times over equals certainty and understanding. That you just there. But so that's a common theme in Scientology. You do these things. There's a lot of repetitious brainwashing.
Drill, drill, drill. That's
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think of anything else. So when you guys reshot it, was there any
yeah.
particular talent or we
Well,
saw a picture of
the
that messenger?
yes, there was the guy who played the messenger. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. He's a wonderfully talented actor. He's also owns a reclaimed woodworking and wood supply business. He's a very, very talented guy. I can't. He built a piece of furniture for me. He's a wonderful guy. So he was in the
I
protein.
remember Al Clegg and the other guy. What about you?
Yeah, no, I just for some reason his name
It,
slips my mind at
it's
the
not like
moment.
you worked with thousands and thousands of actors over the years either.
Yeah, exactly. Which I did. But no, this guy, he was in the professional TR's course. He played one of the two main actors.
Oh
He
wow!
was in
When
he
they
was in this.
reshot that,
Yeah, he was in this film.
we
He
should
was
mention
in
we should mention this before we talk about
what?
this.
Yeah,
Almost all of these films, even the one that Mitch just mentioned, were shot previously by
yeah,
some by L. Ron Hubbard, some by the crew
yeah.
at the
His yeah,
90s, but almost all of these films had to be reshot because,
yeah,
for instance, Larry Anderson that we spoke about, he is
yeah,
declared persona non grata by
yeah,
Scientology,
yeah,
as has been just about every main actor in the films that we originally.
yeah, yeah. Eventually, so many people left these films and left the Scientology and spoke out, rendering the films useless. Which is weird because Scientology is such an insulated bubble that the people inside that bubble probably never heard of Larry Anderson. They
That's
probably
right.
never knew that all this horrible stuff happened.
Yeah,
But
especially
but
years later.
yeah, but still they had to be remade.
But that's the best part. They had to be remade, and the actors. These films, Scientology teaches you that their goal is to clear the planet, to make
Right.
everyone a
Yeah,
Scientologist clear,
unless you're
not
an
have the
actor in a
reactive
film.
mind. Yeah, but if you're a Scientology actor, you can't be in a Scientology film because then you might not be in Scientology
Yeah,
anymore.
after I mean Miscavige like laid the law. He said no more Scientologists in these films. We're just going to hire actors from the outside. So there's this whole group of people out there that can never be in Scientology. It's
Yeah,
weird. It's
because they
kind of
might
like,
leave Scientology and then they have
yeah,
to redo those films.
exactly. It's kind of like this amazing case of an organization being biased against its own members. So
Totally.
it's just so crazy.
It's mind-boggling if you think about it, that we don't want you to be in our film because you might end up getting into Scientology
Yeah,
and then leaving Scientology. So we just want to hire you to be an actor. But the actresses and the actors that are already gung-ho Scientologists and want to be in the films, you
no
can't
way.
be in the film because you're
No, no,
probably
no.
going to
All
leave.
of these films you see, everything you see that's out in the public, like the Way to Happiness film,
Yeah,
like the Super Bowl ads, all of these, none of those people are Scientologists. The people
yeah.
that are playing auditors and that are playing people receiving auditing, and none of them are. They can't be by policy. because Miscavige is too afraid that they're going to leave and speak out. I have a couple of friends that I made over the years who were these actors who were never Scientologists and
Yeah.
are still my friends today. And they'll never work for Scientology again.
Yeah, I think
Because,
I'm actually friends with Shane Johnson on Facebook.
oh, that's really because Shane
Yeah.
is he's a kind of under the radar quasi Scientologist.
I think I might be friends with him on Facebook. And there's another guy. Do you remember a guy named Jack Maxwell?
Absolutely.
Was he in?
Yeah, he was from the What Is Happiness video.
What? That's what it was. I could
Yeah.
never remember. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know this guy. I shot with this guy. I remember he was buying a Starbucks in downtown LA on Grand Avenue because
Yeah.
we were so broke we didn't have any money. He's like, "Do you guys want me to buy you some coffee or something?" I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"No, this is not good. This is going to come back to bite."
Yeah.
That the talent
Yeah.
can see like these guys are ragtag. They're not running on they're not running on
No.
cash.
No.
Jack Maxwell. Yeah, no, I'm friends with him on Facebook too.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's
Good actor.
amazing. And he is the most recognizable dude we ever shot in a million years.
Yeah, he was in
He just has a really
he-
cool look, and he's just
yeah,
a really
yeah, he's
chill
kind of
dude.
a James Dean kind of character.
He reminds me of the guy that used to play Starbuck on Battlestar Galactica.
Very much
18
so.
Face.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember he was also in Tiaras in Life, which I don't
Yes.
know. Yeah, he played the guy who put the pick through his toe.
That's
He put
right.
a pick through his boot. Yeah.
Did we shoot that in the oil field?
We did in the actual real oil field down in
Down
LA.
near downtown LA. We have to do a
Well,
whole
no,
thing.
it's actually called Ladera Heights. It's on the way to
Yes.
the airport. Yeah.
That's right. On the way to the
Yeah.
airport, we got to do it. What that was TR1. Did we already do
I
TR1?
don't think so. That we should do that. That's an
Yeah.
amazing film. That was the film we shot in black and white.
Yeah.
Like
we
really
don't
shot in black and white.
yeah, don't tell any of the stories because there's some
Yeah,
really
so yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
going to. But getting back to EM5 for a second, there's a
yes.
very interesting piece of another very interesting connection between a lot of people may be aware of you may or may not know who Leni Riefenstahl is. Leni Riefenstahl is a very noted documentary filmmaker. She was hired by Adolf Hitler. She was like a superstar in Germany in the 30s as an actor, as a director, as an actress. She was hired by Adolf Hitler personally. She directed 2 films, Triumph of the Will and Olympia, for the Nazis. And they are considered to be 2 of the greatest, most effective propaganda films of all time. I found out about it in film school. Her work is still studied. And it's a very strange story. We could do a whole episode on it. So through a very strange series of circumstances, Hubbard ended up rewriting a film, her most famous film, which was called The Blue Light, which is a film she did before she worked for Hitler. Before, it was a pre-war film. It's a notable film. You can see it. It's even on YouTube. You can watch it. So the whole circumstances about how she and Hubbard colluded and did this thing. Damn, I had some stuff here I wanted to show, but
I have the picture. I have
yeah,
the
we
letter.
have this one letter. So people have reported on this. Tony Ortega did a very nice article about this. I've written about it in my book. I have more of the material than anybody else. I have a copy of the script that Hubbard wrote. I have letters between.
Like he punched up.
No. This is actually, well, the script is, it's his script. It's his English language version. He was hoping to reboot his quote unquote filmmaking career, which never happened because when I researched it, I found out Hubbard was only in Hollywood for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, if you come to Hollywood and you have a job for 10 weeks, you were fired. Like nobody wanted you around. If you couldn't make more than 10 weeks, right? But this entire illustrious L. Ron Hubbard
L. Ron Hubbard, the filmmaker.
Yeah, the screenwriter is a bunch of bullshit. So, but he was hoping to reboot his kind of film script writing career. And in honesty, in terms of Hollywood, the footnote about L. Ron Hubbard is some of his dime novels were used as source material for serials that you never heard of.
Yeah,
unless
like
we told you.
Yeah.
The Secret of Treasure Island, you never heard of unless we told you about them.
Yeah,
we ain't talking like
Dorito and
we're not talking about Buck Rogers here. So anyway, he and Leni Riefenstahl managed to come together in 1960. What is that? 15 years after the Germans are defeated. He's now collaborating with this woman who almost went to prison for being a Nazi collaborator.
And he's also trying to find out about this Africa thing, right?
Yeah, and so what happens is, so I'm researching this, I'm reading through all the documentation I have, which was given to me like as a gift by David Miscavige. I have the stack.
But was it because you were doing this film and this had it some kind of
No.
backstory relation?
I'm writing a book and I'm reading all this stuff. I'm going through and I'm very carefully reading the letters. There's a letter, you can bring it up. Like, there is no doubt that Hubbard was dear friends with Leni Riefenstahl. This is a letter from Leni Riefenstahl from her production company, because she's still not trying to make films. This is from July 11th. What does that say? July? What month is that?
1979.
Yeah, 1979. Okay. And I can't read it, but maybe if you can see it, you can read it. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, it says it's written it's on her letterhead, and it says
Right.
Mr. L. Ron Hubbard, St. Hill Manor. So she's writing to him in East Gridstead in Sussex in England.
Right.
And it says, "Dear Ron, I was very much surprised and pleased and I was very much surprised and
to hear from you after such a long time."
Yeah, there you go. "I regret
Yeah.
to say that I cannot provide photos of South African village because I never been in that part of the continent. I spent my time mostly in the Sudan or in East Africa. However, I can send you a photo of a Nuba village if you want. In this case, I have to know whether in color or black and white and which size. I hope you are doing well. I should be glad to meet you again. With kind regards, Leni Riefenstahl."
Yeah. So let there be no doubt that
Wow,
Hubbard was friends with this Nazi collaborator. I mean, there is
that's
absolutely
so crazy.
there is absolutely zero doubt. So I'm reading this letter and I'm saying, wait a minute. I'm looking at the date, 79. He's not at St. Hill in 79. He's
Yeah,
at La Quinta.
he was in the
He's in
Inland
La Quinta.
Empire.
Yeah, he's in La Quinta. So obviously this is still like his international mailing address, because he's on the run from the FBI because the Snow White break-in just happened.
Oh yeah,
And so
this is right around when it was
right. And so he's
Five
hiding
versus
out.
Five Guardians off the
He's
time.
hiding out in this compound, right, with our dear friend Mike Rinder and our dear not friend David Miscavige. But he's with all of these people, right? And he's hanging out in La Quinta.
Well,
and
no,
he's
David.
right.
I don't think David Miscavige was ever with him at that time.
No, I think he was. No, but they were shooting films in La Quinta. We have pictures of
No,
Dave on the camera.
That's what I'm saying. When that was. Oh, you're right. You know what? This was 6 years before, like religious all the craziness.
Oh yeah. This is when he was
right.
He was a messenger, and he was like trying to be a cameraman and all that crazy shit.
Cameraman.
But the real point is, I'm reading this letter from Riefenstahl, and you can tell from the letter that Hubbard had requested pictures of Africa. It is a historical fact that at this time in 79, he's writing the tech film scripts, right? Yeah. There's only one technical training film that takes place in Africa. So if you put this all together, he is reaching out to his old Nazi collaborator friend saying, "Hey, Lenny, you got any pictures of Africa? Because I'm about to do a film in Africa." And when I read this, I was like, holy shit, like this whole village was based on information in Africa that Leni Riefenstahl published a very notable book of African native life. She did publish some photography books. They would never let her make a film again. She was a pariah of the German cinema. I mean, on her death, she was referred to as proto-feminist fascist filmmaker. Right, if those two things can exist together. So this is just another weird piece of history that people don't realize, that this was, that it was Leni Riefenstahl's photo expedition to Africa that then informed Hubbard about writing this film about him being a white savior and helping this special mission project out. So
well,
just thought I'd share that. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty. I mean, this is all insanely wild. Like just this kind of backstory, and this is for a silly film about how you're setting up an e-meter. Like
and like who's he going to reach out to for help about Africa? Well, I know this Nazi broad. She used to work for Hitler. She's over in Africa. I'll just send her a letter. And she's writing back to St. Hill, thinking that he's still the head of this worldwide movement. So.
That's so wild. And
it's crazy.
The other thing that's wild about any of this sort of backstory and this different stuff, like I'll definitely put a link to this Chris Owen thing in there.
Yeah, please.
You can see that Hubbard he had plans, and I genuinely believe that is where Hubbard wanted to set up what is now the Flag Land base
In Africa.
in Africa, because he was
Yeah.
trying to buy a hotel there, and he was trying to buy these properties, and he was trying to do these different things. And he was trying to do it because in one of these documents that he's quoted as saying about this area is that they have about 270,000 people. And he's like, we have more than 270,000 Scientologists worldwide. So this is actually like a down statistic in our view to take over this small little place.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, he was trying to set up a base there where he was going to be a popular dude and the people would look to him for solutions.
Right.
He actually wrote a special kind of what's called a security check in Scientology, which is where they interrogate you and try to uncover what crimes you have in order to further your Scientology spiritual counseling productivity or effectiveness. You can't have these hidden crimes that you're covering up. And he wrote a special one of those called the Joburg sec check, because the people that lived in that area were a particularly hard case to crack. And so they were extra super criminal, and he would have to get to the bottom of this. So Hubbard definitely had some wild ideas, and it's amazing that more people don't know about these. And like I said before, we did edit out a lot of these racial things and references in his audio recordings, but they're very nuanced in these films, and they're sort of
they just bleed in because it's his basic it's his cultural indoctrination. It's his cultural programming. It's very misogynistic and very homophobic and very racist, and it bleeds into his work. It's a natural thing. It's like his pathology. I do want to just share one thing with our viewers. I think they'll appreciate this. This all began in 1995. I was up at Golden. I was reading Leni Riefenstahl's memoir. It was a 600 and some page memoir. And I'm reading it, and I come across this passage in the book. And I'm going to read it because I'm going to just read this. It's very short. She says, Philip was a student, by the way. Well, you'll find out. Philip wrote he had found a gifted American author to collaborate on the script. She's talking about The Blue Light. This American he enthused is a brilliant and famous writer who has written many screenplays for Columbia and Hollywood. He is also the head of a great international organization that is spread across the entire globe and has more than 1 million members. His name is L. Ron Hubbard. He is a psychologist and a Scientologist. Leni Riefenstahl, a memoir, page 448. So this is like the crazy BS that was being fed to her about this guy. So wow. So anyway, and then the two of them, I have all the letters going back and forth, and Hubbard like writing about doing the project and and I probably will do some content on it. I've written about it in a book. It's because it's pretty crazy, because this was a person that I was interested in since film school. Leni Riefenstahl. I mean, this is a person that I literally had been studying since I was, for many years. So I got very excited when I found that excerpt in the book, and I put a tab on it. I sent it up to Miscavige's office. Like an hour later, hold on one second. No, this will be worth it. I
know what you're going to grab. You're going to probably grab the thing. I wanted to actually say this while Mitch is having this.
I thought it was right here, but it's not. I have the folder.
Okay. I want to say something though about
this. Go ahead.
There's like Sea Org members that worked at the international headquarters. I would say maybe 10% of them ever talked to David Miscavige, like directly.
That's absolutely.
Okay, maybe 10%. At a maximum, 10% of those people were having direct communications with David Miscavige. Now, and even a lesser amount than that would have a written conversation back and forth with David Miscavige. Even I was at that property for 15 years. I would say that maybe in the entire 15 years, I had maybe 50 to 75 direct communications with David Miscavige, like back and forth on one thing over a period of week would be one thing. I would say I maybe had 75 of those in my 15 years. Mitch I would estimate, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would estimate
Okay.
he's had at least 10,000
Yeah.
back and forth communications with David Miscavige.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And yeah.
we were
Yeah.
shooting films. He would have 1 or 2 a day for
Okay.
every
So,
week for
Mark,
decades.
do you remember in the RTC headquarters before they built the big $50 million building?
Yeah.
Up in those headquarters, in a room, there was a bunch of transcribers, and then they had the big filing cabinets that they could roll. I
Yes.
went up. I rarely ever had any reason to go up to that office, but I went up to that office with him one day. We're walking into his office. We're walking past the filing cabinets, and he says, "You see those filing cabinets? Those filing cabinets are the written communication between you and me. There is more at this time. This was like early 2000s, late 90s. He said, there is more written communication between you and I than between me and anyone else in the world."
There you go.
So
Now,
it was
I
like,
was thinking about this
but
the other
Mark,
day.
I thought
thinking
it,
about this going, how does Mitch get all this stuff with L. Ron Hubbard and this Leni, how do you say the last name? Riefenstahl? Riefenstahl. How does Mitch get his hands on this? And I think, and then I realized, I go, Mitch, that's when I started thinking about it. I go, Mitch was having a conversation with David Miscavige every single day.
multiple.
Every single day of the week. So the fact that that he has this is not, it's wild that he has this, but it's also, if you think about it, it's not, because David Miscavige was talking with Mitch so regularly and so it was, I would say, almost the most consistent person that was always on the same exact job, because even on the communications that I have, they're from like maybe 4 or 5 different jobs. They're not all the same jobs.
Yeah, no, I think I had my job longer than anybody but him. I mean, consistently, like I was on that, because everybody changed posts so much, that.
Yeah.
Nobody's on the same job for very long. So, but that's not something that I have to say one thing though. When I was reflecting back on all this stuff, and I was thinking about that day that he said there's more written communication, it occurred to me that there of course was a lot, but I think he was also lying about that, because he would always say things to pump people up. Like he would say, "You see those filing cabinets? There's more written communication between, blah, 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 blah."
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought
And
about that
also
later, and I thought, this guy's
but
so full of shit. He just nonstop lies to everybody.
but also that sometimes there'd be one little nugget like the one you just showed, this letter. That
Right.
could be all there is, that and the script and whatever it is. And you could have said, there's, that's what I'm going to give you, but what we've got. And he, even when I got a tour from him of L. Ron Hubbard's house, he showed me the next e-meter, the one where you can,
Right.
it's wireless, that it can detect the body thing.
Yeah, you could be dead. You could be audited when you no longer have a body.
But that's up in L. Ron Hubbard's house. But
Yeah.
no, I'd never even heard of that before he showed me that. I was like, what are you talking about? And I never, I haven't even read Dianetics. I'm not even clear, nothing. So for him to talk about this e-meter that works wirelessly, I'm just like, the what?
Yeah.
This is like, you're in like,
yeah, it was crazy.
this is some wild shit up here.
They spent so much money on that meter. It was like a CST project.
Yeah.
They spent, I think, just to physically build that one model that you saw cost $100,000. These are fucking, sorry. This is a group that doesn't even get proper medical treatment for its members.
Yeah.
And yet they can spend $100,000 building the most insanely useless device you could possibly imagine.
You can't get contacts through financial planning, but we're going to spend $600,000 on designing this box for the e-meter.
Yeah, so we can audit you when you're dead.
We're going to have the people that design the iPhone boxes come and design our
exactly.
box.
but
$30 contacts from Walmart. No, that's too much.
No, you can forget it. You can just forget it.
Okay, guys, I think we covered. This was a great video after a little bit of a break. So we hope you guys enjoy this. If you guys haven't got a copy, we'll put a link in the description to Mitch's site and Mitch's YouTube channel, and also Mitch's book. If you haven't got your hands on that yet, we'll
got a book.
All that below, and then we have to think of this was a good one. If we've got another film like this that we actually have some meat, it's hard to go through these films and cover them because we don't have a lot of documents that we can, or stuff that we can
Yeah,
show.
I wasn't
This
exactly
one,
stuffing my pockets full of evidence. I don't know. How about you, Mark? I wasn't exactly.
you know what? I told this story before. I don't know if I've told it on YouTube, but the night before I left in January of 2005,
Yeah.
I had access to David Miscavige's private photo server.
Mm,
And because I set up the networking of the whole entire property, and
right.
so I
Right.
pretty much had like
Right.
shared folders on every single server that I would configure things with, and
Right.
that sometimes would lead to other little finds. But I had Jeff Baker had David Miscavige's entire personal photo server on this visual effects
Right.
network, and I went in there and I got pictures of him with the Beckhams and Tom and snowmobiling here.
Oh my God.
And I just filled up this hard drive. I filled it up with all kinds of like, holy mo! I never even been to it. I was looking for something else and I saw this. Anyway, I had a decent sized drive that I filled up with all these photos. And when I escaped, I actually fell asleep waiting for my wife to come home. She never came home. And then when I woke up, I realized, oh shit, I overslept. I'm supposed to GTFO right now and get out of here. And I left that drive on the ironing board in my place.
Wow.
So
Well,
anyway,
somebody's going to leave with all those photos, Mark. You know it. Like
someday we're
it's going
gonna
to
find
happen.
it.
All that shit's going to come out. Somebody's going to leave from like Sheila from the manufacturing site where they handle all the
Yeah,
technical
Los
training films.
Angeles. Yeah,
Somebody's going to leave from all this stuff is just going to start coming out because it's just like,
yeah. Hopefully,
'cause-
I mean, it'll just
yeah.
be more. It would also be fun for these films to eventually
Oh
become
God.
public, and then
Would
to
you?
be able to go back and watch our videos and then see this
Yeah.
is what we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tech Film Festivals. It's going to happen eventually.
I
They're going
hope
to
so.
come out for sure.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks again. Thanks for everybody that tuned in. And until next time. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, feel free to check out the merch store link in the description. We have Hail Xenu, Xenu is my homeboy, and BFG branded mouse pads, shirts, mugs, all sorts of other stuff in there that helps us to bring you new content on a regular basis. You can also pick up a copy of my book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology, in hardback, Kindle, and Audible versions as well. There's also a link to our podcast, and you can get that on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to watch another video, you can click on this link right here, or you can click on this one here, or you can click on the subscribe button right here. Thanks a lot. Until next time.